Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, the CEO of Boardroom Resources, and your host for today's show. We're going to talk today about the topic of how boards grow with growth companies. And joining me to talk about that is Bruce Bohuny, who's the board member with Lakeland Bancorp, and is also a member of the Next Gen Board Leaders. Bruce, welcome.
Thank you, TK.
So, whether you are a Silicon Valley startup or you're a community bank or any kind of business like that, there's typically you have investors in the beginning, and these investors serve on the board. They're not always the most, they may be the local car dealer, they may be in the Silicon Valley, they may be an angel investor, but there's somebody that has a vested interest in the business, but isn't necessarily have the skill set, for the growth. So you have these boards that are formed. If it's a private board that goes public, it might have been somebody's friends or whatever that formed the board, but all of a sudden you're a public company that has, let's say that bank is all of a sudden $3 billion instead of $300 million. So the board has the responsibility to evolve equally in its skill sets during the growth of that company. So my question to you, you sort of had the opportunity to at least observe that happening in the banking industry. So how does a board go about ensuring that it is growing as the company grows?
I think you said the magic word, evolve. In a perfect scenario, a board is going to evolve along with its management team and with the company. But I think we know that doesn't happen with all the board members. There's certainly plenty who can rise to the occasion. And it's a challenge. You have people that you've spent a lot of time with on these boards, you get to know personally, and certainly the goal is to find ways to help them rise and move along with the company. But some are unable to do that, and what we've implemented a few years ago is peer-to-peer reviews. It's not an easy process, and I think there's a reason a lot of boards don't like to do it, but I think it's kind of a necessary process as the landscape, the business landscape, continues to get more and more competitive. Margins shrink, technology creates efficiencies. Every company has to be run leaner and meaner, and you need good minds there representing the shareholders to stay on top of management. So we've certainly seen it where there is some people who may not have the necessary skill sets to add value to these boards as they grow and become more complicated. What I've seen since I've been on Lakeland's board 10 years now is we've grown fourfold, and we started off as a bank that essentially managed from the boardroom. We hired an excellent CEO, and he's brought in a very bright management team, and with that, the company has really grown, evolved, and now we've moved to, I think, what is a proper board structure where we're really running it through committees with very specific tasks, and we've backed off. We're working on strategic issues. We're working on risk issues rather than micromanaging management.
Peer-to-peer is a interesting dynamic part of the board evaluation process. It is proven to be the one evaluation that can actually change behavior, okay? So, yet we have to appreciate the fact that, particularly the first year that it's being done, what the range of emotions are. So without addressing any board that you serve on, you're still familiar with the process. What do you think is the range of reactions that happen during the first year of the peer-to-peer?
I think it's always going to be a difficult process. It's hard to critique people that you've known well, and I think people have a tough time being critiqued, but it's an essential component for any good board governance, I think, to continue to make sure that we're testing our management. That's our job in that boardroom. We are making sure that they have operational efficiency and that they're making good long-range plans. And I think it's beholden on us to hold ourselves accountable too as board members. So the process of peer-to-peer is pretty essential, but it is a difficult process to implement because you certainly get to know your fellow board members quite well over the years. So it's a challenge, to be honest, and critique them honestly and openly. And certainly some aren't going to perform as well as others, and that's always going to be hard for them to receive.
There's certainly a rise of that. This is what investors want. They want to make sure that they're having a good matrix of skill sets and whatever. So there's a lot more pressure on boards to make sure that, and especially as that size gets bigger and bigger and you're noticed by more institutional investors, and it just ramps up the need. So it's certainly something that's recommended, but also appreciated is the issue that it does create some tension in the boardroom. So let me shift gears just a little bit. Related to that, we have this next gen. So now you're bringing on new people. If you're bringing on people that understand the digital changes, they're going to be younger. And all of a sudden you have somebody like yourself that joins at a board at a very young age. What's your sense of what entitlement or entrenchment is going to occur when you, say, have 12, 15, years in serving on the board, and there needs to be some tenure turnover or some skill set changes or whatever? So do you think that younger people understand this? Or do you think that as the time goes, it will be as difficult as it is now for people that are older to be rotated off?
Well, I was a strong supporter of implementing our new mandatory age, but I'm sure my attitude would be very different if I was 65. It's an interesting process to be involved in. You enjoy it. It's high-level thinking with some very successful people. I could understand how it becomes comfortable, but you can see the necessity for having youth in the boardroom. There tends to be a groupthink with any age. I think it's great to have diversity of age. I certainly wouldn't want to see us push out older members. They have incredible experience and value. But I certainly think that mix of new blood, particularly now with the technology challenges, because that is something they're really not familiar with. They don't live and breathe it like we do, and I'm even on the outer edge of it. Fortunately, I have teens. My 10-year-old can navigate the DVR and Spotify and Netflix as well as anybody. So it's it's something that we as a younger generation kind of live and breathe technology. And you see that's missing. They don't understand how dynamic it is. So I think really to get that age diversity is essential. But yeah, I think it's right now it's an easy question. At 48, I am all for either something along the lines of limits or term limits or younger mandatory age retirements. But I'm sure that question, when you're asked, when you get close to that age, becomes much harder to answer.
So it all depends whose ox is being gored. But Bruce, I want to thank you for taking the time and being candid on this topic about boards growing with their growth companies, and appreciate the time. And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. we'll be back again next week when we take another look at a critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, Donnelly Financial Solutions, and the Society for Corporate Governance.